Hello, my friends. I'm Rick. Welcome to your seat at the table. This is Gray and White Mama. I don't know why we just call her that. We've always called her that. We have no proof she was ever a mama, but she's something else. So I, I I mention this idea every now and then, and it usually gets some complete dismissals as a concept, or that rolling eye kind of, oh sure, we'll start a game at level zero. Hmm. This is actually quite fun and can be challenging to even to the most experienced players to do successfully or do well. So, what do we mean? Or what do I mean when I say run a zero level campaign? Well, let's say Mama here decides she wants to be a fighter, right? Instead of a lover, she wants to be a fighter. So she picks the fighter class, and she starts out with one hit or one experience point, and then we need 1,000 to reach second level. Am I wrong? Right? How did she become the fighter? When your character chooses the role, the class that they want to play in a fantasy tabletop role-playing game system similar to Dungeons and Dragons, which is mostly what this is, in reference to. How did they get to be that? They just didn't jump off the farm and become a first level fighter. What exactly is a fighter to begin with? They're a professional. If you look at history and go down through medieval times, you will find that majority of peasant militias, peasant levies, going back to the eras that these games, are geared towards, are not fighters. They were never fighters, and they will never be fighters. At best, they quantify as a warrior. And this is something that gets played down in a lot of fantasy game systems these days and has for decades. It's really something I think is a bit sad, and especially doubles down when we get into systems that are geared more specifically for. Now what the hell is this crap? It's what I said. I hate it when it just wants to pop garbage up I didn't ask for. Go away. Jeez, I hate that stuff. I hate it. No matter how many times you tell it to stop doing it, they keep doing it. Something else, right? Yeah, yes, I know. Yes, right. She's gonna be like this for a minute. So, how did they get to be warriors? Well, most peasants, if you look at traditional periods of times, are home in the spring to get the crops in the ground, and are home for the fall to get the crops out of the ground. And then winter is just a miserable time to do anything, especially campaigning. So most wars, most conflicts of the Middle Ages and ancient times, especially as you start getting north of north of the Rhine, when it gets really cold, is done during the summer months. A handful of months during the summer, which in some ways limits a lot, because how far can you march a peasant army in a handful of months and need to be able to and marching far so far, but you got to be able to march the survivors back to get your fields harvested, because even the nobility is not that stupid. They understand that the success and failure of their kingdoms rests on the back of these peasant farmers. So they're not total whack jobs. There's a few in history, but most are smart enough to know that, right? So if we turn to the Dungeon Master's Guide for specifically 3.5, right? And I'm a big fan of 3.5. One of the reasons I like it is because of the sheer amount of crunchiness to it. There's so much crunch with extra crunch that you can throw milk at it all day long and it will still be crunchy tomorrow, right? And there's a lot of negatives that go with a crunchy system. But what it does do is give you an extremely wide range of things to work with and from, right? That's a big part of being a good game master or storyteller, is understanding your system better than everybody else at the table, or at least understanding it enough in your own mind to know how much you can get away with and what you can do that doesn't violate the system, right, or the spirit of the system, right? I mean, obviously, what we're talking about right now is what we consider a homebrew, a tabletop rule or house rule game, says whatever. But if you turn to page 108 in the Dungeon Master's Guide for 3.5, you will find a section that talks about basically non class classes, mostly supposed to be for NPCs, but I argue that because the rules say you can alter the rules to suit your needs, we can play these as classes. So you have things like the adept, the commoner, the merchant, uh, the aristocrat. Okay, you see where I'm kind of going with this. If you take the first level fighter and you look at what they have to start out with, they get very small bonuses. They get access to very small amount of feats and skills. Well, how did they get them? Well, you get to pick a feat for get to pick a starting feat for your character. Okay, but how did your character get it? Oh, we'll deal with that in the backstory. Now, that's another thing that connects to this type of campaign, the level 0 campaign, or building your character and gaining your classes. So, one way of doing this is saying, okay, we're going to negate or bump up the existing experience point tree. So in order to get to level 1, you start at level 0 with, let's say, a negative 1,000 or a 1, and then when you get to 1,001, then you become level 2. So now you've just upped it a bit. Or a prerequisite to become a professional anything requires that you have gone through the process in some form to acquire the stuff you need to be the bare minimum of the class you want to be. So in the case of the fighter needs to learn a feat before they can become fighter. How do we get there? Well, maybe the fighter is an aristocrat, the fourth son of the second son of the king, or maybe he's a commoner. He's literally the son of a farmer's son who spends he's a 16-year-old, or what if you want to be comfortable with, make an 18-year-old farm boy who is going on his first summer's campaign season after spending time on the farm. So he's going to be a warrior now, a commoner, or he's going to be a warrior. So he could sit there and say, as the farmer's son, during his 16th and 17th summer, he was out out on campaign with his uncles, his brothers, and his dad, well, fighting the petty wars for their local lord, and then now that he's he's at the age of maturity where he's supposed to make his own way in the world. He's decided he wants to pursue, this idea of being a farmer. So perhaps he needs to earn 5 levels of warrior first before you can have 1 layer first level fighter. Think about it. So you can multitask it or multi-class this character out that way if you want to, or we scale it up. What we're doing here is we're making more challenges, making less seem more. Think about that for a moment. If your fighter doesn't have any weapon skills whatsoever, they get a proficiency in a shield and this kind of armor and those kind of weapons. How and why? How did they learn to do that? Why do they have proficiency? If they're literally first, 1 point of experience as a first level fighter, how could they possibly have proficiency? They had to have learned it somehow. So we're going to play out that learning stage, that learning phase. So perhaps the player needs to find a mentor in town and village, and an older men at arms, or a retired weapon master or whatever who happens to live on the edge of town, is drunk most of the time. the possibilities. Just think of the game possibilities there. I want to be a fighter, but I've been a warrior now for a couple summers, but I need to get that. I need to become the professional. And what sets a warrior and a fighter apart is a warrior will clean or a fighter will clean a warrior's clock most of the time. There's always that chance that the fighter does poorly or gets some kind of disadvantage that the warrior gets to take advantage of and successfully kills the fighter. But 9 out of 10 times, or eight, let's say 7 out of 10 times, the fighter is going to carry the day over the warrior because that's a distinct difference. The fighter has skills and proficiencies the warrior does not. Right. So, how did they get the proficiencies? And when you look at the other classes, it's no different. So if I want to be a cleric, before you can be a first level cleric and earn the things you got in there, you had to learn them and do your time. So if you start out as an adept and you take, let's say, we need 3 levels worth of adept before I can officially become a first level cleric, it's the process of developing the adept or developing the warrior that we get those proficiencies that are required, the things we need to have to earn the position of a first level whatever. Just think about the possible fun that is, because I grant you, I've tried this with less experienced players and it doesn't usually work out as good, but I've had some really good long-term players that played a couple campaigns like this every now and then just for a change of pace. It's interesting, especially if you're looking at multiple long-term campaigns with the same kind of group, because if these characters get developed even earlier in their development, I mean, you spent even more time at the table watching these characters grow. It really puts more flavor and attitude into them, and it helps you tweak them even more. So, I mean, proficiency, I don't want to be proficient in this, this, and this. I want to be proficient in this weapon, and this weapon. Well, if you did that as a warrior and you learn to do them as a warrior, why not? Meanwhile, all warriors that if you unless you look at the criteria for the warrior itself, and I'm not going to dig into that for the max details on it, but a fighter can have proficiency in a number of types of armor and a number of weapons, where a warrior tends to be, if you won't even give them proficiency, proficient in a weapon, maybe a shield, because peasant levies generally don't have much in the way of armor. If they do, it's at best leather or cast off chainmail. But it's most majority of them don't have that. Unless they've got a rich lord who's got all the gear for them they themselves aren't coming to the field with it. More likely, they're going to be, walking in big formations, carrying spears and pikes, or using bows and arrows. Uh, Maybe some of them, axe wielders. Very few would have swords. That's would be higher level warriors who would have acquired them on the field themselves and not learned through trial and error or somebody mentoring them. But once again, how did we get there? This is that opportunity to take us there. So we talk about spells a little bit. This is the whole idea that came up to me, and this has probably been 30 years, 35 years ago when I first ran my first level 0 campaign, and the players and I went almost a year. We met twice a month for almost a year and ran this through until we moved to play another. We went to, I think it was Star Wars that followed again, because that's kind of how we rotated a lot back then. It was D&D and Star Wars. It was every now and then something else might get on the table, but mostly it was those two. So the guys really got into it, and so we looked at that from the perspective of magic. And I thought, well, if you look at the very entries in the player handbooks, right? I'm just saying, in the very player handbooks, which I was starting to settle down, but she's laying on my other arm, is, I have 2 for this 3.5 system. And I've said that before. I've played so many years, so much that I've had so many people come to the table who didn't even have one book. They wouldn't invest in one. player's handbook. And I always, just maybe a personal quirk on my side and probably a wrong thing, since I'm prone to do stupid wrong things too because my whole life's full of it, right? Is I tended to not believe a player's intention to be a serious player or a serious gamer at all until they start arriving with their own books. They sit down and they play a couple sessions or a couple months with you, and they're just bringing the pen and paper. And some of them don't even want to do that. They just want you to hang on to that stuff for them. So they have no investment whatsoever. And my friends, you'll never or hardly ever get somebody who's at that level of engagement to ever get really immersed in the game. Once again, I'm a big fan of full dimension theater of the mind. Sure am. But what do when you got a player that just won't just cannot or will not engage? They won't even bother to purchase their own player handbook or core book. I mean, you play a lot of the other systems, the core book is the book. So if you want your half of as a player, you need to have that core book. And that's why I've always said that a dedicated gamer that wants to play a system buys the system. Not so they can, I don't know, argue with the presenter over what the system means or does or interpret it at the table, but in part mostly so everybody's as informed as they can. But it shows that they're willing to invest in it, right? So going back to the spells. In the spell book, there are level 0 spells. What? No, no, there's no. Read them, go look them up. In this particular, edition, they have level 0 spell. Well, the clerics and magic users have them. They're called cantrips. If you're not up on that, that's what they are. What cantrips are baby spells. They're toys. They're little tools, and it's amazing how few players. I can do a whole video on cantrips alone. How few players utilize cantrips to the full potential. The rare times I play a spellcaster, I love to use those cantrips, and I'll use them in ways that really annoy the hell out of some people. I can annoy the other players. I can annoy the GM too. Like, what are you doing? Well, that's what they're for, right? If I can use the invisible hand to knock something off of a wall behind the guard to get the guard to turn around, you know, if I can use men to mend a few things, why wouldn't you? And that's parts of being immersive. You get deeper into the play where my character, or while we're sitting here and and you are over here arguing about to do next. I'm over here going, there's this, I can mend this tear. Just add a little flavor to do anything. No, but it was kind of being in character while in character. This, at least that's my interpretation of trying to be as immersive as I can. But the other side is cantrips have a lot of other tiny useful uses, and they're extra spells. That's the thing. Well, I'm out of spells. I'm out of spells. I mean, they really aren't. When they sit there and they're out of spells, well, they got a half dozen cantrips that they could fire off. They just don't have any kind of creative ability to figure out a way to make them useful, right? Or they hadn't figured out a way to use them because they're later. Like I said, I'm starting to get up on a tangent when it comes to the idea of cantrips, but cantrips can be tweaked too. We know that later levels that spellcasters, specifically wizards, can get spells that let them enhance lesser spells. So we can meld in 2 or 3 lesser spells together and then put them on a trigger to fire off with some spectacular magical bomb going off. Or we can, use this 3rd level spell to make the 1st level spell fire off like it's a 2nd level spell or something like that. Well, if you can do that, well, then you can do the same thing with a cantrip. So you could take the cantrip spell and power it up, give it a little bit more muscle. So perhaps that invisible hand that can only manipulate 5 pounds or less of something or whatever, and you can or the whisper or the mend or something like this, and you use it to enhance that ability, making it much more potent. My tap on the shoulder becomes a slap in the back of the head. Well, it ain't going to do no damage, but it will be hard enough to get your attention. Maybe, just maybe, give that opponent a temporary disadvantage or a temporary negative, depending on how you want to look at it. But, that's just, me babbling right now as an idea. So I think you should give it an give it a thought, give it a shot. Nothing else. You can also take the idea that's in page 108 of the player Dungeon Master's Guide for a 3.5. I have not looked at fifth edition see if it's in there. I want to assume that it is, but I don't know, and I'm not. I don't want anything to do with any more of the new stuff that Wizards of the Coast is putting out. So unless it shows up in the bargain bin in a few years and I can get it on the cheap, I don't care. So, but in 3.5, you can have an entire campaign that has the use of those classes alone: the adept, the warrior, the merchant, the aristocrat, and a couple. I think there's one or two more. You could use those as the classes for the characters, cutting them off from the traditional classes. How different would your campaign be then? How different of a vibe if you got a couple of warriors, and you got a warrior and a religious adept and a magical adept and an aristocrat all going on a mission or going on their first adventure. How different would that be from the traditional fighter, cleric, you know, rogue, wizard? Anyway, it's a thought. It's an idea. Just wanted to share. It's Plum over here. It is Sunday, the 19th of November. No, October. Jeez, I'm getting old and tired. Yeah, it's been a very busy weekend. Back on Monday, this is where I start crying. Right. Back on Monday, I stopped downtown, did 2 morning jobs, and I stopped downtown at the county building because I needed to get tags for my van for some idiot reason. I never got the letter in the mail last month, so I stopped and I parked the truck on the side street in a legal parking spot. The truck just fits in them. Paid for the ticket, paid for the spot and everything. I ran in. I wasn't in 15 minutes. Getting in and out of the DMV in 15 minutes was shocking enough. I was thrilled to get in and out so fast. But in that 15 minutes, somebody come along and smashed the driver's side mirror assembly on my truck. So if you don't know anything about commercial trucks of any size, you can't drive without those mirrors because you literally cannot see behind to the left and to behind you, and so I would have to open the door and lean out like some weird James Bond movie or Mad Max movie to see past the tank and hoses to make turns and to change lanes safely. Then so the truck got sidelined for the entire effing week, and so I was in and out of the office. I was doing 5 6 hour days, mostly screwing around. I actually got quite a few pages of my would be game type up, the revised edition. I have finished the negotiation, investigations, and interrogations section, and I'm just finishing up on planetary satisfaction, and then I start creating your military forces or your opposing forces. I think top 4 channel, and it's so the book's I'm actually halfway through the core book now, making quite a bit of ground. Grateful for the opportunity to do that. I got to be brutal this next week though. I've got to make now. I got a whole week's worth of shit last week didn't get done. Excuse my French. I got to figure out how to shoehorn it into the next 2 weeks, get it all done. Plus, there'll be a couple jobs that just don't get done because we're supposed to do them, and I can't go do them twice in the same week. They get mad. I just hope they have to them. They understand every now and then our truck has issues. It just is the nature of our business. Then so it took I didn't get the truck back till Friday morning. By the time I got, we were able to pick it up and bring it over to the shop. There wasn't enough time to go do any jobs. I had to take the wife to a doctor's appointment, her yearly mammogram thing, which is very important to have done. No matter how much they cry and gripe, make sure your spouse gets hers done. I know I understand it's painful. I am empathetic. I'm grateful I have not had to deal with that sort of thing. It's hard enough to deal with some of the stuff we got to go deal with. And we do, ladies. Men got our own trials too. Granted, not as weird or as painful as that is. Anyway, so then I came rushing home and I got a couple-hour nap. And then I went out and I was out all night doing a place called Central Standard Burgers on in Waukee. So it was almost a 30-minute drive one way from that place to where we unload the truck. So I made 4 trips like that, plus the time it took to pump them out. So I got done about 2:30, 4 o'clock, 2:30, 3 o'clock ish. And then by the time I got the truck done, went back and got to the shop, things was going on 4 ish. 4, I was bed about 4:30, 5 o'clock. And then my wife's birthday was the 16th, so 3 days ago. And she'd been trying all month to win these free tickets to the Alabama concert here in Des Moines. And I looked at our budget and I thought, yeah, I can squeeze the tickets out of our credit card. So our credit cards, it's always close to max. If I can keep it within a few $100s of not being maxed out, I'm grateful. So I mean, it's just been brutal. The last 2 years has been horrible. The next year's does not make me think it's going to be any better. Well, I can pray and hope, but I'm getting to a point where I'm really, really considering I got to make some different life changes. Something has to give, and I don't know. I don't know. It's hard for me to want to take risks of that scale at my age. And then there's a part of me that feels dutiful to my employers. I owe them, even though by all logic, I do not owe them a damn thing. I'm a mercenary. I get paid for my service. But sometimes we go a little deeper than that. There's other connections to it. So I got the truck back. I went out and did a job. I think I managed to squeeze in around 40 hours. So I would have had a close to 50-hour week, but here we are with that other thing trying to jump in and I hate this stuff when it happens because I can't get it to stop. I don't think it stop. Stop. I'm looking forward to when everything absolutely has to have that quick, easy, you know, the FCC is going to put into a law into play, a rule into place that states that all programs have to have an automatic, easy to to unsubscribe from. None of the BS that they make you run around and scoot and other crap. Because all this thing here is wanting to do the PC helpful soft driver update, do this and do that, and then pay me money. Go away. Fuck off. I never asked for this thing. Never did. It got piggybacked in on something else, and I'm not savvy enough with a computer to tell it to stop other than to get frustrated and squawk about it, right? And just squeal about it. It's like a lot of things. All right. So I got these updated glasses not too long ago, and they're great for reading if I'm like this close to the damn thing. But from the distance, not so much. I don't know. I think the prescription's wonky. It is what it is. So I got managed to squeeze in 40 hours, and then I took the wife to I bought tickets. I bought tickets up in the nosebleed seats at $35 a ticket. We spent close to $200. between parking, the tickets, maybe a little more than that, and then the swag because she has been in love with the Alabama band since she was a kid. As long as I can own her, she just lives and breathes this band. She actually got mad at me when I bought the tickets because she was trying so hard to win the free ones, and there was four, and we had, my Kevin and his spouse. We, they've invited us a few times to go to the Funny Bone, and we could have invited them to go with us to the concert, which would have been nice. But I didn't see the chance of her winning that being very high, so I thought let's just go ahead and get the tickets for her birthday. So we went, and it was actually pretty decent. It's the first time I went in anywhere with one of these wireless setups where I had never done this on the phone, and I was paranoid that I didn't have it set up right. I was worried, and what I didn't stop worrying until I got through the door. But welcome to my pessimistic existence. That I'd spent a lot of money and made a promise and then get up there and look like an idiot because I can't figure out how to show them the damn ticket that's on my phone. But we got through the door, and then we were actually our wing was way up, but where you come in, it was actually on the same floor or level as the street, which I didn't know. I didn't realize it because I'd never been in this place. It's new to me. I've been used to going to the the VA or the Veterans Building across the street for most of my existence. So the first time we've ever been in this new place, it's 20 years old, so it's new to me. Uh, it's down in a bowl, and so the seating though, oh my God, the seating was, dude, I'm 59 and I've shrank. I'm 6 foot. I used to be 6'2". When I was 6 foot, 300 pounds. Keep bouncing up and down about 10 pounds, 290, 295 each, goes up and down. The seating was horrible. My knees kept bumping the seat in front of me. The person, kept putting his arm around this woman in front of me. We kept rubbing knee and arm. It was kind of weird. And then my right knee had surgery back in the 90s on it, and it doesn't do well if it sits in a certain position too long. So I don't like riding the back seats and stuff like that. I'd have to turn sideways for any to ride any length time, or my knee would ache like a deuce, and that's what I had to fight with. That I had to. Fortunately for me, there was a lot of activity with the crowd where people would get up. My wife was up on her feet most and up and swinging and singing and shouting and screaming and having a good old day. And I'm there, and so I could get up occasionally, or I could stretch out when everybody else was up, and it is what it is. It was damn near a packed crowd. I don't know how big the capacity is of this place. That's Hy-Vee Hall or whatever the hell it is down there by the river. It sits on the site where the old River Hills Riviera movie theaters used to sit, where I saw Star Wars the first time in '70s, and then I remember when the Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back came out. My friends and I went to go see it, and my mom dropped us off around noon, and we were still in line at 1 in the morning. And she kept coming back and checking on us, and she had to bring us Burger King to me and my friends, and I don't remember what age we were. We weren't that old. We weren't old enough to drive ourselves, that's for sure. And we were hell bent on getting in. And toward the 1 o'clock, one of the movie attendant people come walking down, counting heads, and gets down past us and goes down about 20 people, 25 people, and then starts telling people, this is the maximum. If you're not already in line, you're not getting in. And so we got in. It was going on 2 o'clock in the morning when The Empire Strikes Back, or I mean, not The Empire Strikes Back. Yeah, yeah. The second movie opens up. It was something else. So when Return of the Jedi starts, then I'm 16. That was the year I had my driver's license. It was still in the theaters. One of the very first things I did was go see that thing by myself in the theater. It was the beginning of a long passion for the franchise until recent years, which is just appalling. But then I'm old and I'm grognark in many, many ways, right? It is what it is. So I'm going out to go. The wife and I got home about midnight last night. Didn't get to bed about 2 a.m. Uh, while we were there, she wanted to get a new T-shirt, so we couldn't find it. She couldn't see the stand, so I went on a mission and I found where they were selling them. Then I went and got her. the opening band was Exile, which is another Tennessee band who's been around 61 years. They were saying a number one hits, but Alabama's got over 23 first for top chart number one hits in their career. Anyway, it was only really half of Alabama too, right? The one brother, no, the one cousin, he died a few years or some years ago, and then the band, the fourth member of the band, the drummer, apparently got into it with the rest of the band over money, concessions money. $200,000 in concession money was, I don't know, something went down, so the two main brothers sued their drummer, and that basically put him out of the band. So there's only two of the original four-member band members in Alabama, which is okay. So I got the wife, and we go and go get her crap, and she's sitting there. Can I get a bag? And can I get this? The bag was $20 damn. This is an Alabama bag on it, and yeah, okay, sure. And then I seen this black Alabama hat, right? So I pointed at the black. I said, "Well, I get that," and I said, why don't I get it? So we get all of it together. It was $100, huh? Went on her credit card, which it's going to take 3 months, 4 months to get that paid off, and I'm trying not to get us any further in the credit card hole than we are. It's just hard enough to deal with what I got. Uh, the, so wasn't partway through the evening, she's like, well, I should put my hat on. I'm like, so, it's gonna be for me, but she did okay. She had a good grand time. So anyway, got a crock pot of stew I put on last night before we went to bed. It's been crocking all night long, so I'll be eating stew off and on all day. Take a long nap this afternoon because I'll be out all night again tonight. I have that monthly Pancheros. I don't know. I might do a video while I'm out there tonight. Depending on how damn tired I am. I get tired. Just hard to do anything sometimes. I'm just getting old. Anyhow, we run that ramble out, right? All right. My mom was over here. Anyway, thanks guys for hanging in there this long. If you even got to this part, awesome stuff.